Next week on Thursday we have district council elections, and I hope that as many people as possible will vote. It's true that the powers of local governments in many ways, they've actually diminished over the years. This has been going on for a very long time. And fewer people have actually been voting in local elections. But I think there is a real sense now that more powers have to be given back to local government to provide the sorts of services that people want. The difficulty at the moment is that something like 80% of the funding for local government comes from central government, and therefore they're in the position where they have to do very much what central government wants. And of course the demands on them have resulted in huge pressures on local government to fulfill what central government is asking of them. But what are these elections all about? Well, the first thing is, in a district council, is that they deal with planning matters, they deal with environmental matters, they deal with housing issues. And in a rural area like Suffolk, this is all hugely important. People want to live in an area like West Suffolk because of the quality of life, and they do expect their council to provide good services for them. I personally think that in the difficulties which for councils certainly exist because of all the pressures from central government, the two councils, namely Forest Heath and St Edmundsbury, have done a pretty good job. The difficulty is that this government ruthlessly allocates money away from a rural county like Suffolk. For example, our council taxes have actually gone up by between 40 and 50% above the national average, simply because central government has refused to give the money. And so the pressures are enormous. We pay more for petrol, for example, in the rural areas, and of course we are seeing big problems in our hospitals. But I think that what is hugely important is that the interests of a rural area like Suffolk are represented by people who have the interests of that area at heart. We have a government which is an urban-obsessed government, very metropolitan, has no sense whatsoever of what lies outside the urban areas. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter whether we happen to live in a city or a suburb or in a rural town or village. We're entitled to fair treatment. And the reality is that under this government we have not had fair treatment. For a number of years, Suffolk was run by a coalition of Liberals and Labour. We saw a huge increase in our council tax at that time, way ahead of inflation. We saw a crisis in social care, we saw bed blocking. It really was an administration which was not fit for purpose. And it is only the Conservatives that in these difficult circumstances have provided the sort of services that people aspire to. There is a real sense of optimism in many parts of my constituency. It is growing, it is improving in many ways, and it is the Conservative Party under the leadership of David Cameron that is looking ahead into the 21st century challenges, not looking backwards to a failed government which has failed to live up, frankly, to the promises it's made. Huge increases in our taxes, and the question is, where has the money gone? So please consider voting. It is important. And it is also important that people send out a very clear message to this government in these local elections, that they're simply not prepared to put up with public services that are inadequate and ever higher levels of taxation. That is what it is all about, these elections. Please, whatever you do, do vote. Your vote is important. And in these local elections, it could be highly significant to the future governance of our country.